Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. My name is Nick Park and I'm fascinated by scientific discoveries. Now, I'm not a scientist and I don't understand science that well. In fact, when I was at school, I was much better at subjects like history and languages and English than I was at any of the sciences, such as physics or chemistry or biology. But nevertheless, I find scientific studies and discoveries fascinating. And one of the strangest things that scientists have dealt with in recent years is, of course, black holes. These immensely dark, invisible stars, basically, that are so dense and so full of gravity that they attract everything towards them and swallow it up, even light itself. Now, I was amazed to find out that although until comparatively recently, scientists didn't seem to know about black holes, and then when they began to become aware of them, argued whether they really exist and stuff like that. There was actually a Church of England clergyman back in the 18th century, in the 1700s, called John Mitchell, who predicted black holes and suggested that they existed. Now, John Mitchell, he was a scholar at Cambridge University, and he taught and studied, get this, he taught and studied in Hebrew, Greek, mathematics, theology, and geology. I mean, what a mix of subjects. It'd be very hard pressed to be an expert in two or at the most three, but to be able to teach at Cambridge University in such a wide-ranging mix of subjects is truly remarkable. And he was always carrying out experiments. Apparently his rooms there at Cambridge University looked more like a workshop or a laboratory. He was building machines. He studied magnetism, and he worked out something known as the inverse square law that became greatly useful for aiding using magnets for navigation for ships at sea, for example. And then in 1760, he also wrote a paper on the mechanics of earthquakes, and he was a guy who worked out that the Earth was made up of different layers, including a top layer which we call the Earth's crust. And he was even able to, following the Lisbon earthquake in 1755, he was able to estimate the epicenter of where that earthquake took place. And he was also one of the first people who came up with the link between earthquakes and tsunamis. Now, we're familiar with that today. We know an earthquake can be followed by a tsunami, like the Great Boxing Day Asian tsunami. Well, John Mitchell was the guy who really put together the connection between earthquakes and tsunamis. He was studying all this different kind of stuff, but he then left Cambridge University and went to Thornhill in Yorkshire, where he took over from his father as being the rector of the Church of England parish there. But he continued to study science in between his pastoral duties. He built his own telescopes. He worked out all about gravity and star constellations. He invented a device that could estimate the density of planet Earth. We're talking about the 1700s here. Now, he wasn't able to finish building it in his lifetime, but his friend Henry Cavendish did, and successfully measured the density of the Earth to within 1% accuracy, which is incredible. 99% accurate, in other words. But the great thing about John Mitchell today that he's remembered for is he predicted black holes. Because he was studying the effect of gravity on stars and how the constellations weren't created by random, but it was the gravitation on the stars pulling each other towards each other. He was able to estimate that there had to be something out there that had immense gravitational pull, but you couldn't see it. And he said these dark stars must be operating for the stars to be placed where they were and behaving in the way they behaved, which was hundreds of years ahead of his time. Now, the thing about John Mitchell might surprise people that he was also a clergyman. But the fact is that many of the earliest scientists and the great scientific discoveries came from people who were intensely religious, who believed in God, who believed in faith, who believed that God had created the universe, and they felt they were simply discovering the laws that God had created for the running of his universe. And in somebody like John Mitchell, we see somebody who didn't think that they had to kiss their faith goodbye to pursue science. They didn't have to commit intellectual suicide to become a Christian, but they were able to combine faith and science in a really tremendous way. And I thank God today we still have scientists. There are still eminent scientists today who are firm believers in Jesus Christ, because science does not contradict Christianity. Science supports the truth that we find in the Word of God. God bless you today. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.